I want to ask you guys all a question. Like today in this assembly, I'm going to ask questions, and I've learned something, right? I've learned, like, in life, we will find ourselves so often, we will lie to parents, we won't be honest with teachers, we won't be truthful with friends. A lot of times, we're just not real with people around us. A lot of times, we'll put on that fake smile and we'll act like everything's okay, and we'll act like we got it all together, and we're just chilling and everything's good, don't worry, I got this. But below the surface of all of those smiles and below the surface of all of those emotions and those fake false fronts, we battle with pains and hurts and wounds, we battle with issues of life. And so I just challenge some of us today, like, you know you, and you know when you're not really okay. You know when you wake up and you stand in front of that mirror and you're getting ready for your day and you're getting ready to go attack life, or maybe you're getting ready to let life attack you, right? But you know when you're putting on that fake smile and you act like it's all okay, but really, man, you're hurting and you're tore up from the floor up on the inside. Like, you know you. And so I'm going to ask questions today, and I'm going to beg, and I'm not afraid to beg, and I will beg and I would plead with some of you, many of you, just to be real with you for maybe once in the first time in a long time. How many of you sitting in these seats right now? Right now, currently, this school year, not even this school year, but let me ask this. How many of you today sitting in these seats, like right now, currently, in your past, up to right now as a sophomore, at home, right now, you do not have mom and dad living together right now. They've been divorced, separated, broken. Like, mom and dad's just not there right now together, right? So I see probably about 30, 35, 40% of the hands that got raised. And let me ask this question. See, that was me too in high school. Let me ask this question. How many of you that come from that broken family, mom and dad's not there, mom's never been there, maybe it happened here recently, but how many of you that come from that broken or divorced or separated family, how many of you, if you were just going to be honest, can you say that truthfully and honestly that mom and dad not being in the home together right now, that it has bothered you, it has affected you, it has wounded you, it has angered you, it has hurt you, it has caused you to feel and act some type of way growing up in life? Raise your hand. Lots of us have, right? You see, when I was growing up as a kid, my mom and my dad, I come from a family of four. When I was a young kid, like going through middle school, elementary school to middle school, I was a family of four. It was mom, dad, sister, and me. And I'll tell you what, like my dad, he was my everything. He was my icon. He was my role model. He was my hero. If I could have been like anybody, I wanted to be like my dad. Like, he was just that guy to me. Like, he was that dude that influenced my life, that I just wanted his approval. I wanted him to be proud of me. And he never would talk to me. When I was growing up, he never talked to me like I was a kid, though. He never talked to me like I was just like a fourth or a fifth or a sixth grader. He always would speak to me like I was just a little man, and he was always trying to put like words of wisdom into me and put some meat on my head, right, and try to teach me life, right? And I remember when I was in the sixth grade, he said, Nathan, I want you to understand something. And I was a kid, right? He said, life's never going to give you nothing. Like, life is never going to spoon feed you. Like, if you sit back in life and if you try to cut corners and if you try to manipulate and just kind of slide and glide and use your personality and your charisma, if you just try to get by just to get by and do just enough just to get by, listen, that may work for a season, and maybe you'll get through middle school and maybe you'll get through some high school, but eventually as you grow up, eventually all the handouts and all the corner cutting is going to stop. And if you didn't work hard, if you didn't build it, if you didn't go after it and absolutely master whatever it is that you wanted to achieve in life, and all the handouts stop, you're going to have nothing. But if you get serious about your dreams and your goals, if you get serious about the things that you want to achieve, and if you start to build it, and if you start to go after it with a tenacity and a straight desperation that you have to achieve it, if you build it, nobody can take it from you. And he told me that when I was a kid. He would challenge me when I was a young man. And see, I listened to what my dad had to say when I was that little dude, right? And I remember when he told me that, I was in like the 6th, going into the 7th grade, and I wanted to get a scooter so bad. Like, scooter laws weren't nearly as strict as they are right now. Like, you could get a scoot way younger. And so I wanted to get this scooter, right? And I didn't come from a lot of money. I like your hair, bro. Right on. I didn't come from a lot of money. And so if I wanted the scooter, I was going to have to go out there and get it. And so I remember one summer when all my buddies were wanting to play video games and hang out, dude, I sacrificed, and all summer I was raking leaves when they had fell in the fall, and I was mowing the yard leading up to that, and I was painting garages. I was doing every side job, every odd job that I could do, right? And I saved every dollar, every quarter, every nickel, every dime, every penny, every 20, every 50, every 100. If I made it, I saved it and I pocketed it, right? And I saved $2,000. And I got this $2,000, man, and I was so proud of myself when I walked into this little scooter shop, right? And I picked out the scooter that I wanted. Give me it. Mine. Here's your money. Let's go. Dude, I had that scooter for 3 days. Man, yeah, dude. Bah! Totaled it, destroyed it. Dude, I was hot, like mad. And see, my dad would always try to put these little jewels of words of wisdom. And he knew how mad I was, and so I don't know what he was thinking when he said it to me, really, but he said, Nathan, let me ask you a question. What did you learn about working all summer, having your scooter for 3 days and then wrecking it? And I was so hot, I said, Dad, you want to know what I learned? It's real simple. I should have hit the brakes, bro. I didn't want to hear none of it. But he taught me that as a kid, right? He also taught me growing up when I was a little bit younger than that scooter situation. I wanted to start learning to play ball when I was even a little younger. And so my grandparents, they paid for this piece of concrete out in my house, right? And we had this basketball goal, and it wasn't a nice goal. It was a telephone pole stuck in the ground with this ran down backboard and this rim, right? And my dad brought me out to this court, and I was a little dude, and he's kind of tall. He said, Nathan, that's how you play ball, right? Your job is to put that ball in that goal, and my job is to stop you and check. And he checked up to me, and I'm sure I probably double dribbled the first couple times. I got the ball, I shot. Wow! Dude, my dad took that ball and popped it off my face. Dang, dude. I picked the ball back up again. I shoot. Wow! Dude, my dad proceeded for 2 hours to beat the brakes off of me playing basketball. I'm in the 5th grade, he's a grown man. I think he's thinking it's the NBA Finals or something, man. Like, I walk off this court, like, in tears, defeated. I'm broken. I'm a 5th grader, so like I'm an emotional little kid. Like I'm literally having a breakdown. Like my dad just, I'm never playing ball again. I'm a wreck. My mom saw it, and she came down out the house, right, and watched, and said, Tim, why would you not let your son make one basket? I mean, I didn't make one basket for 2 hours, I promise. But I will always, even to this day, remember why and what he told me. And I'm so glad he taught me this when I was young. He said, listen, Mickey, my mom's name is Mickey, my son, he's never going to be the most talented. He's never going to be probably the most gifted. He's probably never going to be the best of anything that he goes after. There's always going to be probably somebody that's a little more crafty, a little more quicker, maybe a little harder and smarter. But what my son can control is that he can see a problem, he can see an object, he can see a situation in front of him, and he can control the controllable. And you know what the controllable is? Him. He can outwork it. He can see a problem in front of him and decides, you know what? Maybe I'm never the most talented or the most gifted, but I can control hard work and sacrifice and tenacity and the refusing to quit. I can control me, and I can look at any problem or obstacle or mountain in front of me and refuse at all costs. I'm going to overcome it. And I'm not going to stop until I figure it out. He taught me that when I was a young kid, man. I didn't care to hear about it then. I just felt mad and sad that he just beat the brakes off me playing basketball. But I'll tell you, that principle of realizing, like, in your life, you're always going to have opposition and obstacles in front of you. Like, you're always going to have situations that seem unbearable. You're going to have things that seem, tasks that seem too big or daunting. Like, man, I don't know if I can do that. I'm telling you, hard work and sacrifice and having that fight in you that, you know what, regardless of the circumstances of your broken past or your situations or what's going on from behind, you can overcome it. See, he was always trying to teach me that when I was a kid. Growing up, man, my parents were my everything. I remember we used to always have these things called family meetings, right? And family meetings to me were always exciting because at a family meeting, my dad used to always love to surprise us. And I think he liked the glory, he liked the praise of saying, hey, we're going on a vacation, or hey, we're going shopping. Thanks, Dad. He loved getting the family together and kind of giving us that breaking news so he could kind of, I think, just get the smiles, and I appreciate you. So whenever he called a family meeting, I would always be excited. He called the family meeting, I was pretty stoked for the day, and I remember as I would turn the corner and I get ready to walk into the kitchen, I remember as I walk in, I turn the corner right, and I sit down. My dad was to my right, my mom was across from me, my sister was to my left, my back was to the sink and to the stove and to the refrigerator. I remember the details of this entire atmosphere in the room. See, all of us have in our lives, every single one of you sitting in these seats right now, we have things that I call moments of impact. And a moment of impact is simply this. There are moments, there are situations, there are events in your life, these single occurrences, these single situations, when something happens in your life. It can be good and it can be bad. But there are things that happen in your life. When something happens in your life, right? Like maybe you won the championship, or maybe you aced a test, or maybe it was the first time you ever went on vacation, and maybe it was that first memory of something that was so positive and inspirational. You remember just the details around it, right? These moments of impact also can happen when negative things happen in your life. Maybe it was the first time that you heard about your parents getting divorced, or your grandmother passed away, or your best friend moved away, or your best friend passed away, or something is painful and hurtful happens. But when these moments, these situations, these events happen in your life, it can be good and it can be bad. But when it happened, it's like the details in life are more vivid. You can visualize and you can see and you can think back, and you remember the people that were around you, the clothes that were on people's backs, the conversations that were rolling off the tips of people's tongues, because that thing happened and it was so impactful. The details are just more vivid in your life. They're moments of impact. How many of you can think back right now about a situation in your life today, in your past, good or bad, that it's just more vivid than the other thing? Like you can just remember it's a moment of impact in your life. Raise your hand. Lots of us have those moments, right? I walk in, I sit down, and I remember it like I would never, ever forget it. Mom looked at Dad, Dad looked at Mom. I remember everything about this room, the wooden table that I was sitting at, the decorations that were on the kitchen wall. They were the ugliest, most hideous things I've ever seen in my entire life. Giant ceramic pieces of fruit. I never got it, but it's whatever. But Dad looked at Mom, and Mom looked at my dad, and they said, Nicky, Nathan, your mom and I, we need to talk to you. We're going to get a divorce. And as soon as that word rolled off my dad's tongue, man, it was like the wind from my lungs got sucked out of me. Woo! And I looked at my dad and I said, what did you say? You see, to me, I thought divorces and separations and that kind of things were people with problems, and we don't have problems because I never not one time, and I'm not exaggerating it, I'm not overstating it or emphasizing it, not one time did I ever see my parents fight in front of me. Maybe I was just naive, but I thought I had this picture-perfect cookie-cutter family, right? And so when they told me about this divorce, it blindsided me. I was confused and I was trying to figure things out. And as I began to ask the questions about what was going on in my family, see, when I was growing up, I was never ever, and I could do the rest of this assembly and just say the word never ever. That's how serious this situation was. I was never allowed ever in my parents' bedroom. I was never supposed to or ever allowed to cross the threshold into the room. And they said the reason is that in their room is where they would go to get away from me to have some peace and quiet. I only remember 4, maybe 5 times that I ever see the bedroom door even open. They said, Nathan, that's where we go to kind of have some downtime, because you know what, you and your sister can stress this out. And I could kind of catch that. I could get it. If you get to know me, I'm kind of high strung. I'm pretty intense. I'm pretty energetic. I kind of have like this tendency of like a squirrel, right? Like I'll be talking to you, listening, and like I really care about what you have to say, but I just kind of lose attention, and then I'm talking to you, and I didn't mean to be disrespectful to you, bro. My attention span isn't the longest all the time. So it's like I'm a squirrel. So I kind of get why Mom and Dad could say, hey, we just need some space from you, because if I was my mom and my dad, I would probably say, hey, bro, I need some space from you. But as I began to ask questions about why they got divorced, see, I found out the truth of the matter is behind that door Behind that door, they weren't who they said they were. Behind the door, they weren't picture perfect. Behind the door was where the verbal, the mental, and the emotional abuse happened in my family. Behind that door is where the drugs and the alcohol happened in my family. Behind that door, they weren't who they said they were. And as I began to ask the questions to find the truth about the matter of who they were, I began to find out, and I got so upset because, see, I thought everything that I believed about my parents were a lie. They weren't who they said they were, and I was hurt, and I was angry, and I was mad. As I began to find the truth about them, I felt betrayed and lied to. And I remember I looked at my dad one time when I was in the 8th grade and said, I'm never going to be like you. How you want to see me touch a drug? You want to see me party? I'm going to prove to you that I don't need you. I felt like everything that I believed and I was taught was built on a house of lies. And my parents, they told me over the years, listen, Nathan, we were just trying to raise you up and give you a safe environment so you could make good choices and not worry about the struggles in our home. And I understand the reasoning, and I'm not saying their reasoning was wrong, but it didn't change the fact of how I felt. I felt lied to and betrayed, and I was angry, and I was hurt, and I was bitter. But you know what they taught me to do real well? Boy, did they teach me to do something real well. They taught me how to put on a mask. They taught me how to smile and to act like everything was okay. They taught me how I could put on and project that my life was picture perfect, just like I had watched them for so many years. And they could talk and taught me how I could go through life and make good grades and put on my fake smile, and on the surface seem like everything was okay. But below the surface in my life were hurts and pains and wounds. Below the surface of my life were struggles and issues, and I feel like I was dying on the inside. See, if I could describe my life to you on a picture as in a postcard, the picture you would see would be me on the beach, and it would be a beautiful beach with a majestic sunset with pristine white sand and crystal clear blue water. It would be the most perfect picture if I could hand you the postcard. But below the surface of those waters were darks and depthnesses and predators and preys, and I was dying on the inside. And I know a lot of us, as we sit here today, many of us, we put on those fake smiles and we put on those act like we've got it all together, and we go through life with all these hurts and these pains and these questions of the struggles and the emotions and the wounds, and we don't talk about them because we don't think anybody wants to hear about them, and we're scared to begin to embrace the who and the hurts and the pains that we have, so we mask and we put on our fake smiles. And we don't talk about our issues in life. And the problem about it is, man, and I wish I would have known this then, that I promise you, like my heart, it believes and it pleads with so many of us in this generation that are rising up, is that, listen, pressure, when you don't talk about the core issues of the hurts and the whys and the pains, what happens, those masks and those layers that we put on top, pressure begins to build. And the problem with pressure is what will bust pipes. Pressure will always find a way to escape, and if not dealt with properly, it will explode. Pressure will always find a release. And the problem with me, man, is I didn't know that it was okay to not be okay. You see, I thought growing up that it was not okay to not be okay. And I didn't realize that I could talk to people and to friends and to systems of care, adults and parents and people who really valued and cared about me. I didn't realize, nor did I have the courage to take off my mask and begin to talk. So I just bottled it up and isolated. My issue is, let's be honest, I cared about the opinions of people so much. It's so easy to care about the opinions of all of you. It's so easy to care about what does so-and-so think of me, and I need to act and talk and look a certain way, and maybe we don't verbalize it, and maybe you don't tell your bestie, right, hey man, I really care what they think about me. No, we don't do that. We subconsciously, we quietly, we do it all the time below the surface. As we get ready, as we go through life, subconsciously we find ourselves caring so much about the opinions of what you think of me. I need to act and talk and look a certain way. I need to rip and run with this certain crowd and clique and group of people. And as I was going through middle school, getting ready to go to high school, I had two best friends at the time. I had a Jared and a Jordan. How many of you in here, if I just asked you the question, do you have a best friend? Would you say, yeah, raise your hand, right? You got a best friend, right? How many of you would say this, that you would consider yourself somebody's best friend? Raise your hand, right? Listen, if I was your best friend and if I was living life with you and I was from this community and I was growing up here, right, and our parents knew each other and we were growing up as kids together and we hung out and we played and we kicked it, right, that means we would be invested in each other's lives. I would know you, you would know me. I would know your struggles, your hurts, your pains, and your wounds. I would know you on a deeper level. I would be the person that you would send the text or the snap to. I would be the person that you would say, hey, I think so-and-so's cute. And I'd be like, yeah, she is, right? Yeah, he is, right? I would be the person, right, that if we were growing up and kicking it in life, that you were angry at somebody, like, man, I just don't like her, I want to smash her. I'd be like, no, you can't do that. That's not good, right? If I was your friend, we would know each other on a deeper level. I would know your hurts and your pains and your wounds, but you know what I would also know about you? I would know your dreams and your goals and what you want to achieve and what you want to become. And a real best friend, a lot of us say we're best friends, and a real best friend is somebody that is so invested and believes in you so much that at all costs, because I care and I value you as a person, I'm willing to do whatever it takes at all costs to get you to the next level. Because I want to see you successful. And I believe in you. And when you reach it to your dreams and your goals, me as a friend, I feel like I did what I was supposed to do in your life. And a lot of us, we say we have best friends, and a lot of us say that we are someone's best friend, and a lot of us know that there's people that out there that don't have any friends, and we're not willing to speak up and to speak out and help encourage people to be the better them. And when I was going through school, I had a Jared, then I had a Jordan. Jared wanted to go and become a pharmacist. Jordan wanted to go to the Army. And if I could have been anything that I wanted to be, well, I love photography, I love traveling, and I loved animals. If you put all of those together, a photographer for the National Geographic, that would have been my dream. But what happened with me when I went from middle school to high school, the problem with me is that my sister, well, she was 4 years older than me. So when I was in the 5th grade, she was a freshman. When I was in the 6th grade, she was a sophomore, 7th grade junior, 8th grade senior. And as I went through middle school, she went through high school, and I watched my sister go through high school. And she was a straight A student, a varsity cheerleader, dated the star athlete. Our school was a couple thousand students. We were pretty prestigious in sports. And see, I saw her being well-liked and popular and well-beloved in the school. And when I went to the high school, I had this idea and this opinion that I wanted all of you to see me a certain type of way. I cared so much about my life and how I projected it on you. I wanted you to see me the certain type of way. And so after my freshman year, as I was trying to figure out this big school, you know, I was making straight A's and I was doing good in school. And after my freshman year, when the yearbook did our little vote, who do they think was going to be one of the most successful freshmen in the class? Well, every one of the conversations, Nathan Harmon, people knew I was serious about overcoming and becoming something successful. But see, below the surface, the battles that I dealt with are the pressures of the opinions of people and caring about what you thought about me. Deep below the surface, the hurts, the pains, and the wounds that I didn't want to talk about. Behind the fake smiles and behind the I'm okays were a lot of pressure being built. And I remember after my freshman year, I looked at Jared and I looked at Jordan. And well, the truth of the matter is, Jared and Jordan, they were kind of getting singled out and isolated as a strange and different kids that were kind of weird. They dressed funny. They talked a little different. And I was kicking it with them and they were good friends, but I was getting labeled and identified like them too. And honestly, I cared so much about the opinions of all of you. Well, I made one of the worst decisions that I ever could have made. If I keep kicking it with them 3 more years of high school, I'm never going to give off the image. You're never going to see me the way that I want you to see me. So I decided to step away from Jared and Jordan and find me some new friends that were going to help me get labeled and identified the way that I wanted to be. And I found these new friends, and they were juniors and seniors, and they were kicking it right. And they brought me into a little circle. They were the kids that kind of ran the school. And they brought me in, and it was all cool, man. Yeah, they hung out with me, and they brought me in. But the problem is they weren't invested in me. They didn't know my hurts and my pains. They didn't know my struggle. They didn't know my life. And so even though they brought me into the little clique, the little crowd, the little group, they really didn't care about me as a person. And they gave me these nicknames, right? The first nickname they gave me was a nickname, and they called me Bacon. And the reason they called me the nickname Bacon, and I would talk to them, and I'd say, hey, man, that's not my name. My name's Nathan. Please stop calling me that. And they were very intentionally being very verbally, like, condescending. The reason they called me the nickname Bacon, well, you see, I'm 5'7"-ish. I'm close. I'm 5'6"3/4. Math teachers tell me that I can round the 5 up. For some reason, height, I can't. I'm 5'6" 3/4, but 5'7" just sounds better. I'm 5'7"-ish. With the bun, I'm like 6 foot. But see, I've been this tall. I've been this tall since the 7th grade. And when I was this tall in the 7th grade, see, my mama, she's only 4'11". She's little. Dude, there was no chance of me getting tall. I was hit from the get. But when I got to be this tall in the 7th grade, I was like genes and DNA. I'm beating the system. 6 foot, here I come. Dude, I never grew another centimeter the rest of my life. I've been 5'7"-ish since like the 7th grade. The problem is, I was 70 pounds heavier than I am right now, and those friends, they said I was fat like a pig, and that's the reason they called me Bacon. The other nickname they gave me, and they constantly verbally tore me down with, they gave me the nickname Nasty Nate. And the reason they called me Nasty Nate was simply this. You see, my mom and I, we don't come from a lot of money. When I was a kid, we didn't have much. And when it came to getting new clothes, school outfits, school clothes, I never got brand new anything. Designer, all of my clothes were hand-me-downs from cousins and uncles. All of my clothes came from Goodwills and clearance aisles. And my mama, we did the best that we could. My backpacks were never brand new backpacks, never got brand new school supplies. All my school supplies, they would be the hand-me-downs from my sister. She would get the new and I would get her old. And when I was hanging out with these new friends, it was time for me to get my license. And well, we didn't have a lot of money. We did the best that we could, but I got some junky beat up Blazer that it would barely run, but it did run, and it would get me to school and from school, and it was rusted out. It was nothing to look at, though. And all of these friends, right, these friends, they were the haves, and they had lots of nice things, and they made sure that I understood that they were the haves and I was the have-nots, and they would verbally tear me down, and they would always call me nasty and bacon and all of these names, and eventually the verbal abuse became physical, and they'd put their hands on me and pick on me. And you know what? The truth is, though, I would smile, and even though I'd ask them to stop, and on the inside, how they treated me, and they tore me down, and they cut me to the ground, my worth and my value and my self-esteem, it became so low, small, and minuscule that I only began to mumble, and I couldn't even really communicate my sophomore, junior, and senior year because I didn't feel like I had any worth and my voice didn't matter. And even though I acted like it was okay, it was killing me on the inside, but I cared more about the opinion of all of you, because when I ran around with these kids and I was involved in their circle and their clique and their crowd, all of you thought I was part of them. And I cared more about the opinions of you than actually surrounding myself around healthy friends, good relationships, and people that valued me as a person. And even though I would smile, the words they treated me, it was tearing me up, and it was causing me to have thoughts of giving up, and the reality of that my life meant nothing. Words hurt. And there's many of us that we come to school and we look at people that don't act and talk or look a certain way that you seem and deem as the right way or the popular way or the way that you think it's supposed to be. And so you find people and you cut them down and you tear them down because they don't fit the mold that you think they're supposed to. And the words and what you're saying to some of us are causing some of us to think about giving up in life. Words hurt. How many of you right now, this sophomore year, this current school year here at Palo Verde, right? How many of you have seen a classmate, somebody in this school that you can just tell, man, people are not treating them right? Raise your hand. Lots of us have, right? Now let me ask this question. Who in here is the young man and the young lady that's sitting in here right now that's hearing my voice through this microphone? Which one of you are the person that's verbally abusive to somebody? Who's the one in here that tears people down and bullies people because they don't act and talk and look a certain way? Where are you at? Nobody raises their hands. Why? We all sit there like we're just kind of frozen, handcuffed, like we don't want to move. We don't want to raise our hand in front of people. Why? Because you know how you treat us is wrong. And you know when you cut us down and you tear us down and you're verbally abusive, and when you're bullying us and you're being verbally nasty, intentionally being malicious and causing and trying to inflict us to feel and to look and to lose self-value, you know how you treat us is wrong and you think it's okay. But see, I know who you really are. Every one of you that come to the school and you look at people and you cut us down. And I guarantee you, let me ask this question. How many of you, and I don't need you to point fingers or name names, I just want you to raise your hand. How many of you can tell me that sitting right in here, in this gymnasium, in these seats in front of me, is somebody that you know, we know, the school kind of knows, that's hearing my voice through this microphone, that you know they're the person that normally is verbally abusive? Are they sitting in here right now? Just raise your hand and tell me yes. Are they sitting in here? Of course they are, right? So when I ask the question, we all sit there like we're frozen and nobody has the courage to raise their hands in public, right? But yet when I ask the question, there's a lot of you saying, yeah, there are people in here. So why don't you have the courage to raise your hand in front of all of us? Because you know how you treat us is wrong. And I want you to understand something. I want you to understand, I know who you really are behind the mask that you're wearing. You see, behind the mask that you're wearing, the reason you treat us a certain type of way, you see, when you wake up every morning and you look in the mirror, that reflection you see brokenness and you see pains and hurts and you have a past that it's not the best. and you feel like you've been labeled and marked, and you don't have a lot of self-value and self-esteem, because see, every single one of us, we all have somebody that we just want the approval from. We all have them. Every one of us has somebody we just want to feel like we're validated by, and when we don't feel that, here's what all of you that come to the school and you cut us down, this is why you do it. You've learned to come to the school and you get your little clique of friends, 3 or 4, that laugh at your jokes, and you find people that you think are weaker than you and you cut them down because you need the laughter of the friends around you. You need people to begin, and you need people to look at you like you're somebody of importance. So you cut us down and you step on us with your words at our own hurts and our own pains, and you take value from us because you think it's what you have to do. You overcompensate and you try to intimidate people that you're important. But really behind the mask, I know who you are, man. You're more hurting and more pain and probably more tore up from the floor up than the people that you're treating that way. And the words and how you're treating some of us are causing some of us to feel like maybe giving up is an option. And I want you to see the hands when I ask this question. All of you that you know you treat us a certain type of way, and you're the one that's verbally abusive, I want you to watch and to witness these hands and to recognize how you cause and treat us as causing some of us to have thoughts that are very dangerous. How many of you currently this school year, not you, but somebody you know in this school this year, you've heard it? You've seen it, but somebody currently this school year, you have heard them talking about and entertaining the idea of maybe I should just give up and commit suicide. Raise your hand. Raise them high. Raise them high. Raise them high. Hold those hands high, please, for me right now. Every one of those hands that you're holding up, your hand represents a person, and that arm is connected to somebody's heartbeat. And all of those hands that are raised represent somebody that feels like giving up in your school, man. And you know why I talk about like suicide and thoughts of failure and quitting on life? I talk about it not because I read books and I wanted to get educated so I could go to schools across the country. I talk about it because I know how those people and those friends that I used to call friends treated me. And when they would tear me down and verbally and physically abuse me, intentionally try to make me feel like I was less than, I know what it caused by the time I was a senior and no one was at my home, that I climbed up into the garage when nobody was there, and I climbed the ladder and I grabbed the rope and I wrapped it around my throat, and I was on the brink of giving up. I know what it's like to give up and to have thoughts. And it's all fun and games until someone that you care and that you know that's around you. And all of those hands represents a heartbeat in the school that has been contemplating the ideas and the thoughts of giving up. And you know the truth is, a lot of you that tear us down and you treat us a certain type of way, and you're verbally and you're mentally and you're physically abusive to us on purpose, I know that you've probably battled thoughts of giving up yourself too. And you hide it and you mask. And it's so much easier. How you treat us matters, man. And to all of those hands that represent whoever you are in this school, maybe you're sitting in here and you're that person that has contemplated and that you have expressed, and people and peers around you have heard you talk about the ideas and the possibility of maybe I should just end my life. Listen to me. Whoever you are, don't you dare die. Don't you dare believe the lie that you're ending your life and you giving up is an option, it's a choice, or even close to a decision that you can make. You're not alone. You're not by yourself. And I see the tears and I see the emotions, and I know it, man. I know all across this country there are many of us that feel like giving up is an option, and giving up is not an option. Because every single one of you that are battling thoughts of abandonment and alone, and you've already been singled out and identified, and nobody cares about me and nobody values me, so I might as well just end it. Inside of every single one of you that hand represents is your heartbeat, and every one of you that are breathing in air and oxygen into those lungs, your dream and your destiny and what you have the ability to achieve. I promise you, giving up is the farthest thing from the truth. You were born to be something unbelievably special. You were born to achieve things that only your mind could even begin to imagine. Our inside of this room are doctors and teachers and people, man, that can overcome and become such amazing things. And if you end your life and if you believe the whispers and the lie, you rob you of what you were destined to become. And I get emotional, man, not because I understand, like I see all across this country brokenness. And I've been to over 30 schools this year that they've lost a student that current year. Don't you dare believe the lie. You're not alone. How many of you know somebody in this school right now, not you, but somebody you know that struggles with self-harming? Raise your hand. Lots of us. At every school that I go across the nation, I ask these questions. I see the waves of hands getting raised. You know why I talk about self-harming cutting? Not because I read books to get educated about it, because I can count the scars on my hands. I know why. You know, a lot of us, we self-harm is because, well, we have all this anger and these emotions and these pains, and we feel numb, and we heard about it, and we witness others, and we've seen it on TV or social media, and you have all of this stuff below the surface, and the first time you did it, you kind of felt alive. The first time you did it, you felt that release and that pain. Others of you do it, and I don't pull punches, and I'm just honest. Many of us, we self-harm on the surface where people can see it, and we do it. We started doing it because we felt alone, and we felt like nobody knew us or noticed us, and so when we did it, because we seen about it and we heard it, it brought attention. And even if the attention at the beginning was negative and weird and strange looks, they were still looks, and we as people crave to be recognized on some level, on some form. And so we did it, and then we got the attention. And so what happened is we begin to get conditioned that self-harming is a solution, and it is an answer to how to be noticed, and a habit gets formed, and then you want to quit and you can't because you're conditioned. That's how you cope with your hurts. Listen to me, young men and young ladies, and so many of us that battle this thing of self-harm. The reason in the root it's happening is because we look for the approval of so many others. We struggle with looking in the mirror and just simply seeing the beauty and the value in you without any of the people's approval. Like, cutting yourself is never going to solve what you're looking for. I promise you. It's not. Thoughts of suicide and giving up is never going to solve what you're looking for. All of my bullies, all of you that pick on us and you cut us down, see, you're hurting for your value and your worth too. You're all drawing from the same well of that lack of feeling valuable. But all that pressure all will find its release and its escape in different ways and forms and shapes. Best friends, all of you, if you got a best friend that's battling thoughts of giving up and self-harming, if you're a real best friend, you see, I would be your best friend, and I would care about you as a person. And the reason I'm your best friend is because I believe in you, and I'm invested in your life, and I know your dreams and your goals. But you know what? If I was your best friend, and if I heard and I thought you were beginning to have these thoughts and ideas of giving up and suicide, or maybe I began to see and witness the self-harming and some of those unhealthy decisions that you were making, a real best friend, it's my job to stand next to you and to get you to have the courage to speak up and to speak out. And maybe you would be ashamed and embarrassed, and you don't have it in you to talk, and you're kind of wearing your mask. I'm your best friend. You know why I'm your best friend? Not because you have to like me. I'm your best friend because I believe in you and I love you. And if I got to stand next to you and I got to speak up and speak out for you to tell somebody, I don't care how mad you get at me, I'm not your best friend because you have to like me. I'm your best friend because I love you and I believe in you, and I'll do whatever it takes. That's a real best friend. And a lot of us, we say we're someone's best friend, but we're not willing to stand in the gap. See, I didn't have anybody talk to me like this. I didn't have anybody that got really this real with me when I was going through school, and as I was going through the motions, and I was going through high school, and I cared about the opinions of people around me so much, right? And I cared so much about what you thought about me, and I was hanging around with these friends. They started saying, these same friends were saying, hey, Nate, why don't you come over here on the weekend, right? Why don't you come over here and kick it, and why don't you drink a little bit and smoke a little bit and pop this pill and have a good time? And I remember when I looked at my dad and I said, I'm never going to touch it, I'm never going to do it, never going to be a part of it. Nope, not me. I'm going to prove to you that I don't need you. But you know what? As I began to grow up and the pressure of the people around me and their opinions, I remember got into that point as a sophomore that I began to compromise what I knew I wanted to do because I cared about what you thought of me. And so I started smoking and drinking and popping the pill and living in that life. lifestyle. And you know what? It seemed real innocent and it seemed real harmless at first. You see, I know lots of us, when we pop the pills and we drink a little bit and we smoke our weed and we do a little thing right, as we're growing up in life and the culture and society, listen, we're in high school, we're just kicking it, we're having a good time, we're just going along with everybody else. And it seems so innocent, right? Like I remember when I started smoking and I started popping my pills and I started drinking, I remember like I could do that and I could skip to school and I could get out and I could smoke and pop my pills and drink, and then I would sneak back into school, put on my spray, put on my Visine, do all my what I needed to do, slide back into class. My grades didn't stumble at first when I was a sophomore. I was maintaining, I was hiding it from teachers and parents and anybody else. It was no big deal. It seemed innocent. Let me ask this question. How many of you in here right now, like how many of you do you know somebody, not you, but somebody you know in this school that drinks every once in a while? Raise your hand. Right? How many of you in this school, not you, but somebody you know, that pops a pill every once in a while? Raise your hand. How many of you in this school, not you, but somebody you know, that battles around with smoking some weed every once in a while, right? Yeah, right? How many of you, not you, but somebody you know, that battles and struggles maybe with cocaine or heroin? Raise your hand. See, when I first started, it was so innocent. Like I could do it. My grades weren't struggling or stumbling. But I'll tell you what, drugs and alcohol, this is what I've learned it to be like as you're in high school. Like I know right now you're just living high school. Like, man, what's the big deal? Man, I'm partying, having a good time, right? I know that's what I did. See, the thing is though, drugs and alcohol, when you first start them, they're like this cute little bear cub. Like a bear cub, I'm talking like a big bear, right? But the bear cub, the baby. The bear cub, it's innocent, it's cute, it's harmless. Like you could pet a bear cub, you could walk right up to a bear cub and you could pet it. Like I got to come out here last year to San Diego, me and my wife and my kids, and we went to the San Diego Zoo because everybody told me I had to go to the zoo. And so I went there and we came face to face. Oh, I'll never forget it. We came face to face with a panda bear cub. Oh man, dude, listen, let me put you in front of a panda bear cub. Like let me put you face to face with this cute little cuddly black and white stuffed animal looking like teddy bear cub. You know what you're gonna do? I don't care how tough you are, dude. Give me that camera. I don't care who you are. You want that selfie. No, honey, erase it. Give me a better one. Get my good side. A panda bear cub, it's cute. I went to the Indianapolis Zoo one time and they had grizzly bears and there was a grizzly bear cub. And I'll tell you what, a grizzly bear cub, the bear cub, it's so cute and it's so cuddly, it's no big deal. Ah. The problem is when a bear cub is small, it's okay, but as the bear cub grows, eventually the grizzly will come into a 10 to 12 foot bear when it's on its back legs, and it's not cute. You're not gonna go cuddle with that big old thing, and it can kill you. And by the time that I was a senior, when I began to feed the bear cub, the bear began to grow. And I promise you, when you begin to feed the bear of addictions and that lifestyle and that culture, that cub will grow. And it'll grow into something that you can't control. And you know what happened in my life? By the time I was a senior, I went from straight A's to straight F's. I remember that I skipped 70 days of school my senior year. I remember it became, hey Nathan, what drug have you not done? That picture over there, that's me strung out at 19 years old. The skin's falling off my face. I'm a dead man with a heartbeat in that picture. Drugs and alcohol had riddled me and consumed my body. I got kicked out my senior year. I'm telling you, when you begin to feed the bear, you may not expect or anticipate it, but the bear can grow up and it will try to kill you one day. We got to go also this last summer down to the Smoky Mountains with my family. And when we went down there, man, I couldn't wait to get to the Smoky Mountains because there's black bears and I really wanted to get a picture of this black bear. And so when we get down there, right, because I was going back into my childhood dreams of taking a picture of a bear. We get down into the Smokies, my wife and my kids, we're deep into the mountains. I'm talking mountains on both sides, giant mountains, a little road cut in between. There's no nature trails. It's not made for tourists at this point. And there was a car in front of me, right? And the Smoky Mountains are known for black bears. It's one of the largest places where black bears are at right now. And so I was really excited to get this picture of this black bear because you know what? It was cool getting pictures of bears in the zoos, but I want a bear in the wild, right? We're following this little car deep in the mountains. The car stops and turns on his blinkers and he kind of gets out and he points. And I look over to my right, and 20 yards up in the mountain, there's this big old black bear. My first instinct, I jump out the car. And I start moving towards this bear. There's no trails. Now, I've never been the greatest at math, But the math formula that I created in my brain was this: a bear can run twice as fast as me. That means I need to keep the car twice as close as me. Seems like it's a good formula. I saw the videos of the bear like getting on the car and rocking the car. The people in the car were okay. If that happens, and as long as I can get to the car, close the door, even if the bear rocks the car, I'm going to record every bit of it. I'm going to post it. It's going to go viral. We all win. I start moving out towards this bear. I look back at my wife, and I can't really hear that well her, but I can tell she's not okay with this. You ever had that point where you might think that fighting the bear would be better than getting back into the car? Right? I look down as I'm farther from the car than I want her to be. I look down. She's got bear cubs. And she's really protective. She looks at me and kind of snarls. Kind of moves towards me. My chest is like, my heart's gonna like explode. Boom, 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 boom. She moves towards me. I take off like a banshee. Dude, Tarzan. Superman, from building to building, faster than a speeding bullet. Ninja warrior, I would have won it, I promise. I get to the car. I know, in my brain, like that bear is behind me coming, right? I get to the car. Boom, close the door. Dude, I had built the story in my brain. She didn't even move. The bear didn't even move. But in my heart, dude, I was gone. The principle is, though, they tell you don't feed the bears. Why? Because if you start feeding the bear in the Smoky Mountains, the bear will look like you're a food source. And if you don't have food to feed the bear can try to kill you. I promise you, drugs and alcohol, as you continue to play around with them, as that thing grows up, it will begin to be bigger than what you understand. And if you don't always have food to feed it, it's going to try to kill you. See, what happened in my life is by the time I was 23, from 18, I got kicked out of school. I went to the Army for 18 months. I couldn't do that right. I got kicked out of the Army. I was living in my hometown. I was going nowhere fast. I had no more dreams and goals and ambitions. I felt like I had been labeled and marked and identified from my past because of the poor choices that I had made. I had buried so many things below the surface, my pains and my hurts and my wounds. I didn't want to talk about them. And here I was living in my hometown, and I was riddled with drugs and alcohol, and I had lost all the desire to become successful. At 23, I should have just been graduating college, basically, and beginning my life. But here I was at 23, not going anywhere fast, living in my hometown. I was living with my buddy, working for him. And I didn't have a whole lot of responsibilities because, well, he would pay all of my bills, and I lived with him, and I'd make a paycheck. And when I got done, every Friday after my paycheck, we would go and we'd buy a bottle of booze and a bag of weed and a bag of pills, and I'd party all weekend, and by Monday I would be broke. This Friday it was different, though. There was a big party, and so we get off work, I cash my check, we go get a bottle of whiskey, and when we buy this bottle of whiskey, we go to this party, and we get to the party, and it's a good time. We're partying it up. Me and my buddy, we split the bottle. The bottle's gone. They're like, hey, Nate, we're going to go to the bar. Do you want to come? I'm like, sure, let's do it. I get in the car. We go to the bar. When I get to the bar, I have 10 more shots of tequila. I'm lit up. I'm tore up from the floor up, man. I've had a half a bottle of whiskey, 10 shots of tequila. I'm drunk. I'm gone. And they said, Nate, we're going to go to this. We're going to go to this after party at TJ's house. Do you want to come? I'm like, bet, man, let's do it. They said, well, you know TJ real well. And there's about an hour till the bar closes. Do you want to leave a little bit early and get the house ready? When the bar closes, we'll bring the after party there. And I said, yep, let's do it. And so what I did is I get on the phone and I call Priscilla because, see, Priscilla hadn't been at the party that night. And she was at her home, and she had this friend in a group of us, and she was sober. I said, Priscilla, I need a ride to TJ's house. Can you come to the bar and get me? So she shows up. When she gets there, I remember it was time for me to go with her. I go to the bartender. I buy this case of Bud Light beer bottles. I turn around, and as I take off to leave, my buddy stops me. Nate, you're not driving, are you? I said, no, man, bro, she is. She's my DD. He said, cool, we shook up, see you at the party. I remember getting into the car with her, right? And I take that case of Bud Light beer bottles, and I put them in the back passenger seat. And when I put them in the back passenger seat, I don't know, somewhere in the chaos and the confusion of all the people coming and going and leaving the bar, and there was a lot, for some reason and somehow, Priscilla, she gave me the keys to her vehicle. And I walk around and I get into the driver's seat and I put on my seatbelt and we take off. And man, as we were going to TJ's house, I vividly remember the conversations. It's like those moments of impact I talked about. I remember as we were getting to TJ's house, the conversations that me and Priscilla were having. I remember the words so vividly. I remember that as we were getting to TJ's, that last conversation, that we had, the words echo and they ring and they're like etched in my brain. I can picture her face, her blonde hair. And that word that I remember so vividly was just this. She said to me, tree! It was probably as quiet as it is right here. And then I woke up and I heard the sound of the helicopter. A lady with a mask. I'm wigging out. I black back out. I wake up and I'm in a hospital bed and there's 2 people over top of me. Police officers asking me questions because, see, Priscilla's phone, it was locked and her ID was in her purse. So she was fighting for 8 hours and nobody in her family knew she was hurt. My mama shows up. I tell them who Priscilla was. I just know that I'm probably getting ready to get arrested because I'm on probation. I don't have a license and I was drinking and driving and Priscilla's hurt. For some reason, maybe it was because my ankle was broke, or maybe they didn't know how to charge me with either a DUI or a DUI and bodily injury. They didn't arrest me right then and there. They let my mom take me home and just told my mom, listen, we're going to be in contact with you and your family very soon. I get into the car with my mama. I take off every mask that I ever put on, all the emotions and the hurts and the pains that I buried below the surface. I just wanted my mama, you know. And my mom says, Nathan, you need to realize your life's about to change. See, my sister was a nurse, and when the accident happened, she got the phone call. And so when she got to the hospital, she was able to see the paramedic report, and she was able to see the police report. And the paramedic report read, when they arrived on scene and they radioed in, they initially only radioed in, there was one passenger that they could see was in the vehicle slouched over the steering wheel. And the police report says the amount of impact that we hit that tree was anywhere from 60 to 63 miles an hour. And there was no brakes and no signs of me trying to stop, no skid marks. I hit the tree at full speed, boom. And when I hit the tree, my hands were on the steering wheel, and I snapped the steering column and it knocked me unconscious. And when I hit the tree, my foot was on the gas pedal, and upon impact, it shattered my ankle. And when I hit the tree, that case of beer bottles, it flew forward from the back seat. And Priscilla was in the front seat, and she didn't have any seatbelt on, and she flew forward. And so the beer bottles and Priscilla all flew in the air at the same time, and they met at the exact same time when they hit the windshield. And it sandwiched her, and she slid like a rag doll to the floorboard. And her neck rested on the center console. And my mom said, Nathan, you need to realize your life is about to change. Priscilla's neck is broken and she's fighting for her life and she's probably brain dead. And when my mama told me that, I remember when I used to sit in seats just like these, right? And you'd hear the speakers and the guests and the teachers talk to you about choices and decisions. But if you were honest, like me, I would always just visualize some old dude or somebody. Never could I see it being me. And here I was at 23 years old, dealing and faced with the situation of what I had just gotten myself into. And I remember when I got home, I called the police and the hospital trying to figure out, is she going to be okay? She has to be okay, right? Nobody would tell me anything because I wasn't family. But the newspaper ran the story of the headline that morning. It says 2 involved in crash, lifeline to Parkview, drugs and alcohol involved, 1 fighting for her life. So I just decided, you know what? I could sit up all night and wait in the driveway, and maybe when the paper man came the next morning, the headline would say something about her being alive, or it would give me some more information of the situation. And I sat there and I sat there and I sat there and I waited till 4 in the morning in that driveway. And I remember when the mailman came, everything slowed down and the window rolled down as he threw the paper. And when the paper hit, I jumped up and I grabbed it and I ripped it open. And the headlines, it read 3 words, and the 3 words simply were this. It said, crash, victim, dies. And at 23 years old, I killed her. Choices and decisions that I made when I was 23 caused that woman right there not to have a heartbeat any longer. She was a mother of 2. She was a daughter, she was a sister, and choices and decisions that I made that night caused her to lose her life. And you know, when this all began to happen, I promise you, when I began feeding the bear when I was a sophomore, if I would have known when I was 16 at exactly the exact same age all of you are right now, when I began to compromise and to give in to the pressures of the people around me, if I would have known that only by the time I was 16 to 23, 7 years later, that I was going to be responsible for taking her life, I promise you, I never would have gave in to any of the pressure that you put on me. I never would have compromised any of the pressures of fitting in and acting and talking and looking a certain way and feeding the bear because I thought all of you thought it was popular and cool. Because you know what? I promise you I didn't think that could happen in my life. But the choices and the decisions that we make have consequences, good or bad. You know, in my time, I don't have a whole lot of time left with you guys. Long story short, with that, her family wanted me to call them the next day, and I was the next 3 days, and I was scared to death. What do you say? I'm sorry. I'm sorry for killing your daughter. I'm sorry for killing your mother. I'm sorry for killing your sister. And I was scared to death. I was being honest. I was terrified. And I picked up the phone and I called and nobody answered. And I didn't want to call back, but I tried. But I knew I had to, so I called back and Priscilla's mother answered and said, "Nathan, before you say a word, we want you to understand something. We know that Priscilla left her to be your DD and she was supposed to be your sober driver. And she was a pretty strong-willed person and she knew what she was doing. She's not easily influenced. You made some stupid choices that night, but we don't want to hold you solely responsible because you know what? Priscilla knew better than to give you the keys to that car. She knew she was going to be your DD, so I don't know what happened. But listen, we just want you to know we do forgive you and we do love you and we just don't want 2 lives to be destroyed. But can you do me this one thing, please? Can you please not let Priscilla die for nothing and try to make the world a better place?" And I just said, yeah. Who do we need? Jacob? It's okay. He said, "Nathan, can you please not let Priscilla die for nothing and try to make the world a better place?" I said, yeah, I didn't know what that means. But who didn't forgive me was the state of Indiana. In the state of Indiana, they charged me with reckless homicide and they charged me and sentenced me to 15 years in prison when I was 23 years old. And when I went to prison, at 23, listen, I came from a broken family. I had been labeled and I marked and identified. I had battled hurts and pains and wounds. I had suicidal thoughts and I had battled self-harming. Drugs and alcohol had consumed me. I had lost all dreams and goals. I felt like I had made too many mistakes to change. Listen, I felt like I had every reason to say, you know what, life is too tough and I quit. Because sometimes life can be tough. Life can be challenging. And sometimes the obstacles in front of you seem like they're too big and it's easier just to lay down. But you know what I remembered? I remember when my dad used to look at me when a kid and said, "Listen, Nathan, life is never going to give you anything, but if you make it and if you build it, nobody can take it from you." I remember when my dad used to stand in front of me and smack that basketball across my face, and he looked at my mom and he said, "Listen, my son maybe will never be the most gifted or the most talented, but he can overcome and he can learn with hard work and good choices and decisions and tenacity and refusing to quit. He can overcome anything if he wants it bad enough." Let me just ask this question here right now as we're just sitting in here, and I know like I can see in literally so many of your eyes like you are right here in the moment and you are dealing and thinking about issues and some of the parts of your walk and your journey. How many of you honestly right now, if you were just being truthful with you, do you personally on your own, do you feel like honestly you've made too many mistakes to really change your life? Raise your hand. How many of you, if you were just honest and you were just being raw and real with yourself, do you feel like sometimes this, why should I even try to change because I've already been labeled and identified and marked by those around me? How many of you feel this way? How many of you honestly feel, you know what? I think just giving up and not even trying would be simpler. Lots of us, right? How many of you honestly know that your grades are nowhere where they should be because if you would just try a little bit harder, your grades aren't bad because you can't, your grades aren't as good because honestly, you just haven't tried and give it your best effort, truthfully. Lots of us, right? These next couple questions that I ask you are going to challenge you to the very core, man. And again, who cares about the opinions of people around us? How many of you right now When I asked it, nobody moved. But how many, truthfully, that sitting in this room, listening to my voice, you can be honest enough and have the courage right now to say, you know what? In the past before, I have been the young man, I have been the young lady that has been verbally, physically, and sometimes mentally abusive to people, and I have picked on people, and I have been that one. But honestly, I want to change who I am. Raise your hand. There's the hands. Let me ask this question. How many of you today can honestly say that right now in the 10th grade you have found yourself in times past compromising and giving in to the pressures of people around you and making choices that honestly you don't want to make? How many, this is probably the toughest one, how many of you can say that there's been times in the past that you have found yourself beginning to feed the bear, but truthfully that's not what you want to do? Proud of you guys. Listen to me. As we got about 8 minutes, I believe. Yeah. When I went through this journey into prison, I had every reason to quit, but I want all of you that I just asked that question to, and I saw about every single hand getting raised. How many of you can say that this is simply in me right here from Indiana talking to you for the last 90 minutes? You can say that I have inspired, motivated, or captivated you to want to change something about your life. Raise your hand. Lots of hands, right? Listen to me. I want all of you to understand something. I had every reason I could throw in the towel and say life's too big and I quit, but I decided to believe and I refused and I stood on something. At the end of the day, there wasn't a teacher, there's not a friend, there's not a parent, there's not a police officer, there's not one single person around me that can control my destiny but me. And regardless of my past and my brokenness and my struggles and my hurts and my pains, at the end of the day, if I was ready to change me, I could change me, and there was nothing you could do to stop me from changing me. And I didn't care about your opinion of me anymore. So you know what I did? I got serious and I started making good choices and good decisions, and I got some paper and I wrote down my dreams and my goals and what I wanted to become, and I kept them close to me, and they were personal and they were mine. And every choice and decision that I began to make, I would always bounce it off the fact, well, this choice and this decision helped make this dream become real. And I stopped caring about the opinions of people. And I started taking ownership of my life. I stopped blaming my mom and my dad and the people around me for all the excuse of why I failed. You know what? Maybe I did come from a broken environment. Maybe I did come from an unhealthy situation. But at the end of the day, regardless of my past, regardless of my surroundings and my circumstances, it didn't change the fact of what I chose to do. I chose to make poor choices. So I stopped blaming mom and dad. I stopped blaming the people around me, and I took ownership of my life. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. One choice, one decision. I want all of you sitting in here right now, my left, my right, my front to my back, there's not one small choice, not one small decision any of you will ever make. Every choice and decision you make, big or small, there aren't any small. Every choice you make is epic, it is massive, it is larger than life. Because every choice you make has a result, good or bad. To be respectful, to be disrespectful, to do your work, to not do your work, to go to work, not to go to work, to have kindness or to have hate. Every choice you make will have a result in the future. All you have to begin to honestly do is just to control the controllables, and the controllable is you. You can control you. I started making choices and decisions. I stopped caring about the opinions. I took off all of my masks. I started talking to people about my hurts and my pains and my wounds. And you know what? I got released 11 years early from prison for the choices and the behaviors. Good choices, good decisions, preparation, being focused and being serious about changing your life will put you in position for opportunities to help you break out. I got positioned and had opportunities. I got released 11 years early. I've been home for only 5 years. In the last 5 years, my dream was to become a speaker, an inspirational speaker, a talker, to travel and to carry a message of hope, and that young men and women and people of all ages could begin to rise up and overcome any situation, and that no one can stop you but you. I had a lot of people that said, Nathan, that dream's a little too big. There's a lot of people out there that are speakers. How do you ever think that you're going to get somebody to book you? That's a little bit too much of there's other people that are more professional than you that have degrees and things behind their names. You know what? I didn't care about the opinions of anybody. I got serious about my dreams. I refused to say I can't, I don't know how, or I quit. I was going after it at all costs. Because hard work and tenacity and refusing to quit and chasing your dream, and you'll get there, I promise you. Maybe you don't hit the stars, but you'll land on the moon. You don't give up and you go after it, and you stop caring about the opinions of people around you. Stop blaming everybody from your hurts. Take ownership of your life. Take off your mask. Don't feed the bear. Make good choices. Be a best friend. Encourage somebody. Be a voice of hope and inspiration. This is your moment. Palo Verde, this is your moment as sophomores. You have 2 more years after this year. Right now, there's not one of you who have made too many mistakes and poor choices that you can't get serious. And by the time you're a senior, you're running like a full-grown lion ready to devour the world. For the last 5 years, I've got the opportunity to do this. I didn't know how, but I refused to quit. I've been in front of 750,000 people, and you know right now it's wild. The dude right here from Indiana that comes from all the brokenness. Right now, currently, I'm the #1 booked school speaker in the country. And I don't say that to pat me on the back. I say that just to let all of you really understand. It's all about you and what you want. And are you willing just to make the choices to go get it? Don't look for the handouts. Don't look for the spoon feeds. Go build it. And you know what I stopped doing? I stopped looking for the approval of people. I stopped trying to convince people that I changed. You know what I decided? I was going to let my life speak so loud that all of the haters, the naysayers, and the disbelievers couldn't deny the fact that my life speaks, it screams, and it shouts that people can change, and you can too.